You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WYBC. If I sound a touch under the weather this evening, it's because my son thought it would be a really fantastic thing to sneeze right into my open mouth and eyes, the joys of parenthood. But nevertheless, no nights off because news will not stop coming out. In this case, about President Trump finally saying the thing that many Americans have been looking towards in the last couple of years. A lot of the current political chaos surrounding the Trump administration, the Trump campaigns, all boils down to the Russiagate accusations made by Obama administrations and holdovers into his first term that would ultimately end with President Trump facing impeachment proceedings because they assumed that if Trump was putting conditions on certain kinds of aid or financial agreements with, for example, Ukraine, then it must have been done at the behest of Vladimir Putin of Russia. It was all predicated on the Steele dossier that was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign, no longer a conspiracy theory. We are now in a position where Barack Obama, according to emails from the United States archives, have shown that James Comey, the director of the FBI, John Brennan, the then director of the CIA, and Barack Obama buried intelligence data collected from mid and senior level intelligence officials all around the country from almost every intelligence agency that showed that Russia really had very little to do with the 2016 election outside of getting some Facebook accounts running and saying, look here, Vladimir, you got to vote for Donald Trump. I am real American Facebook man. Other than that, there was very little Russian interference in the 2016 election. But the Obama administration quashed that down and instead released a fake intelligence report trying to bolster this garbage Steele dossier. So while President Trump was talking with President Bongbong Marcos of the Philippines today, again, announcing a very major trade deal between the United States and the Philippines, or as I like to call it, the long-lost state of MacArthur. Here you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Of course, we're all very happy to be here to once again reaffirm the very strong ties between the Philippines and the United States, ties that go back over 100 years. And considering the context in which we live these days, especially in my part of the world, this has evolved into as important a relationship as is possible to have. We must remember that the United States is our only treaty partner in the Philippines, and that has stood us in good stead over the years.
They announced a huge trade deal. Again, that Trump administration also showed an incredible amount of indifference towards Xi Jinping's regime in communist China, which is its own kind of diplomatic victory. We can talk about that a little bit later. And by the way, the Trump administration does have a good reason to be taking a little bit of victory lap right now on the way that tariffs have been handled under the eternal arm wrestling match between Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. And it is resulting in some pretty decent budget surpluses for the first time since the first Trump administration. Here's Secretary Scott Bessent on that today.
Secretary, how much revenue have you raised so far from tariffs? I know that we saw a budget surplus in the Treasury in the month of June. Last time we saw a budget surplus was President Trump's first term. Is that largely because of the tariff revenue, and how much have you raised so far this year?
We're closing in on $100 billion. I think we could annualize at $300 billion. So
wow.
A way to think about that is that's roughly 1% of our U.S. $30 trillion GDP. So
he then goes on to, again, take a bit of a victory lap. So this is where the United States mindset is at on the world stage. You know, as we talked about in the prelude to the show, the entire world is watching this major economic deal. Again, the strategic partnership, as the Philippines president said, President Marcos, only major trade deal with the United States, only major treaty with the United States. And then Donald Trump brings up the Obama scandal and says words that are a little bit more than, well, I think he's a scumbag and I'd like to see him, exposed for his crimes in front of the American people. Trump doesn't do that. Trump lowers the boom. And really, it swings across the ship and it clocks the former President Barack Obama squarely in the teeth.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people.
Here we go. This is, in fact, why the series of indictments during the second Trump campaign in 24, the third Trump campaign, technically, this is why this series of indictments was incredibly unwise. This is why going way too far, way too fast, not just going after Trump for the classified documents thing in Florida, which was already ill-advised given the Hillary Clinton letting off of the hook, and when the FBI raided Melania's underwear drawer, and when Trump was then indicted, when the New York case, taking a federal statute at the state level, breaking it into 32 different charges, with the Colorado Supreme Court tried to kick Donald Trump off of the ballot, when in Georgia, Fani Willis tried to hit Trump with RICO, racketeering charges. This was going to come back and bite them. And now that the documents are out in the open, well,
Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well,
now, if the Trump administration was just talking about this as from some kind of an investigative report, if the Daily Signal, if we were the ones who released this report, we found these emails, we published them to the public, that would be one thing. These are direct emails that have been declassified by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. And breaking this before the American people means that when Trump says it came directly from Obama, yeah, we have the timestamps. We have the actual documents in our hands showing that James Comey, that John from the good old CIA Brennan, and good old Barack Hussein Obama himself, they screwed over the American people and lied and committed sedition.
Highly classified has been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things.
Now, from that point, the media did not blow up. That should be a huge red flag for you. These are some of the strongest words uttered by a president of the United States. And this isn't a situation in which you say, well, yeah, but I mean, we have to look at the official investigation to get all of the details out. When Tulsi Gabbard released those documents, and then Chuck Grassley, who I can only assume writes letters with a shiv, busts into the room like the Kool-Aid man and drops another basket of emails and documents showing that the Obama administration was more than happy, more than willing to quash the Hillary Clinton investigation on behalf of Secretary of State and lead presidential candidate for the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, and to keep Obama's end of term from being besmirched. Now it really does appear that the Obamas and Comey, I said on yesterday's show that I thought at most we were going to see Comey hauled up on some charges here. I no longer think that. I think that based on, and we do now have record that the Department of Justice has received the criminal referral from Tulsi Gabbard. This is not just your standard run-of-the-mill, everyday kind of criminal referral. These are direct documents that show explicit actions, maybe not of treason, because treason is on behalf of a foreign power. But what Trump is saying here is a betrayal of the country, kind of an overbroad term used to describe things like sedition, the violation of the Espionage Act of 1917, and every single statute we have on the obstruction of justice, the impediment of federal proceedings, etc. ad nauseum. Because this kind of action was an attempt to not just sandbag, but beat the first administration of Donald Trump over the head with a baseball bat so they couldn't do anything whatsoever. And it is going to come back and haunt them. Now, this brings us over to President Obama, former President Obama's office's response. Again, there's another little sign there for you. We're going to have to continue this over on the live stream. Radio crew, we'll see you in a minute. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Sorry, we have to obey the FCC clock there. So, what did President Obama's office respond? If this was no big deal, if this was something that there was no evidence for, there was no basis for, this is just, Trump out there saying crazy stuff, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats in Ohio. If this was something they thought they could just come out and dunk on, this would be the front page story of every single newspaper in the Kinnett network, in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post. This would be leading. CNN, MSNBC, it would be the front story. And it's not. Obama would have come out on Twitter and said, look here, Donald Trump, you should be focused on running the country instead of daydreams that you're upset about me for. He would have done so. Why do I say that? Because they have done that every other time Trump has done this. This time, however, the media is really silent about it. It's a really awkward silence as well. And from the Obama office, we get a statement from Patrick Rodenbush, spokesperson for President Obama. Again, that is your telltale sign someone's worried. Quote, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response, even though Obama has done that multiple times so far during Trump's second administration. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations, that they don't name, are ridiculous and a weak attempt at a distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. That is not what the claims were, nor at the time the statements that were attempting to persuade the American people. That's not what was said. It's just not. Objectively, the argument that was made by the Trump administration is that the Intelligence Committee had asserted that Russia had tried very desperately to interfere in the American election and did so in a way that swayed votes to the President of the United States at the time, Donald Trump. Now, here's where things get a little bit sketchy. The case that they make in this little statement here, which isn't legally binding because it's not actually Barack Obama saying it, again, legal counsel already given some advice there, say these findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee. Ah, yes, led then by Chairman Marco Rubio. So, at the time, Marco Rubio, now the Secretary of State, made it explicitly clear that his findings were based on the intelligence report that was falsified by the Obama administration, according to the documents that are shown, according to the CIA report that has been released. So essentially what you can see here by the spokesman for Obama is that they're trying to assert that the Senate, because the Senate confirmed falsified intelligence data from this presidential daily briefing, again, all of it's not just a smoking gun. It's not just a paper trail. It's a Hollywood star's sidewalk of direct emails and documentation of the explicit sedition ordered by the President of the United States to Director of the FBI, James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, and many other individuals in national security agencies, the White House press office, and for that matter, the Secretary of State's office under Hillary Clinton. And that's why Tulsi Gabbard responded very harshly, as she should have, this afternoon. So Tulsi Gabbard went up over on Fox News this afternoon to essentially say that Obama futzed around, didn't actually address anything. They are going to be moving forward in some way, shape, or form with this. Again, Gabbard is not playing around. This is now we understand what it is that Gabbard has been up to the first 6 months of the Trump administration. And now the DOJ is in fact preparing to investigate. So according to a multiplicity, I should say, of outlets, the DOJ has begun the process of processing all of the various aspects of these documents. They're looking over things with the Trump administration and may be moving for an official investigation. We got to pick up the radio crew from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
In the meantime, you would expect that the Democrats in Congress who have made it a core focus point of everything so far in this administration to, again, the full rigmarole. We're talking every time there's a political crisis, they get out, they make their TikToks, they make their reels. Representative Hank Johnson gets out there and starts singing a song. They all go stand outside of federal buildings and they yell and they scream. Cory Booker doesn't poop and he talks for 24 hours. Hakeem Jeffries talks like a dilapidated William Shatner on the floor for 8 hours. They make a big production out of everything. So what are they doing right now? Are they talking about the impending Obama investigation and likely what you're about to see are a series of indictments? Nope. Not a word. Instead, they are spending their time going after Haba in New Jersey. We'll look at this here. In the state of New Jersey right now, Alina Haba is currently no longer the U.S. attorney for New Jersey after a series of liberal judges colluded to boot Haba out of her position. So because the Senate is currently hung up trying to assert which individuals they do and don't want to confirm and move forward, I believe that right now there are 262 nominees being considered by the Senate. 0 picks are awaiting formal nomination. 294 positions have no Trump nominee, and 94 positions have been confirmed by the Senate. This is why John Thune is considering canceling a huge portion of the Senate's recess. Because right now you have a bunch of temporary individuals that are currently in staffing positions around the country, all the way from federal judge services to U.S. attorneys, et cetera, ad nauseum. Now, what does this have to do with Hakeem Jeffries? There has now been a House ethics complaint filed against Hakeem Jeffries for trying to pressure judges to force out the acting U.S. attorney. Why? To force out the acting attorney in New Jersey? Well, because the federal government is charging Representative LaMonna McIver for Kool-Aid Man body slamming federal agents trying to break into an ICE detention facility. So Hakeem, again, in his weird mewling, whining voice, tries to act really cool about it, and it just doesn't come off very well.
This far-right extremist group that I've never heard of filed this ethics complaint right here, alleging that I somehow abused my power by speaking the truth about Donald Trump's so-called U.S. attorney in New Jersey. Let me be clear about my opinions.
So notice he can't actually say, let me be clear about Alina Haba and the situation in New Jersey. He has to say, let me be clear about my opinions relative to, I'm padding for time.
Relative to Alina Haba. That's the U.S. attorney right now in New Jersey.
He just said so-called a couple of seconds ago. Why now are we actually calling her by the term? It's all wordplay theatrics. None of it actually has any substance.
She is woefully unqualified and is a political hack. Alina Haba, you are a complete and total disgrace. I don't give a damn about this so-called ethics complaint.
He's so brave. He used a big boy word. Wow. Incredible. Now, the Democrats should be taking this time to talk about this. Oh, this is a big political scandal. It's an abuse of power. How could they be considering going after Barack Obama? And oh man, what's Michelle gonna think? And oh, if they can go after him, they're going after everybody. Again, remember, they are pros at suggesting it's the end of the Republic and we're all gonna die and you have to get out there right now or else they're going to impose martial law and it's going to be Handmaid's Tale, get out the red dresses, get out the white bonnets. It's just going to be pregnancy mode forever. And no, they're not focusing on this at all. They are going to the worst political strategy that they can possibly fathom. And in a weird position right now, the media and the Democrats in Congress are focused on two totally different things. It's kind of a unique time. Right now, the media, and we'll talk about this later, the media is all in on Stephen Colbert being fired 10 months from now. And the Democrats in Congress, they're all focused on ICE. And it's very, very, very strange. And they're doing this in a couple of different ways here. So first of all, Hakeem Jeffries, it was asked about a recent murder, again, in which an ICE agent was shot in the mouth. And his response is, Well, I don't know if it's politically wise.
The Republicans made a big deal about how the Biden administration handled the border last year. That was a major issue in the election. But then we have this officer from the CBP who was shot in Manhattan last night, and Republicans are saying, see, this is, part of the policy. People got in the country illegally. They shouldn't be here. What's your response to that when something that tragic happens in your home city?
It's my hope that the victims of this criminal act are able to fully and completely recover.
So this is where you would condemn violence for this attempted murder of a Border Patrol agent, and you would condemn the violence of ICE.
And those
violence against ICE, I should say,
responsible for the criminal act should be held accountable and prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
So far, so good. So far, this is better than we have seen from Karen Bass, than we have seen from Jasmine Crockett, than we have seen from Senator Chuck Schumer. That's all that should be said here. One would believe that if an officer of Border Patrol is shot in an armed robbery, that's all you got to say. Does Hakeem stop here? Of course not.
At the end of the day, we have to make sure in this country that we secure the border, fix our broken immigration system in a bipartisan and comprehensive way.
Hang on a second here. What does this have to do with an officer being shot?
While at the same time, standing up for dreamers, farm workers, and law-abiding immigrant families.
What does that have to do with a guy? I don't know of any children out on the farm shooting Border Patrol officers yet.
There are a lot of people throughout this country who now disapprove of the Trump administration's approach to immigration, who were promised that the Trump administration was going to focus on deporting violent felons.
No, not violent felons, violent criminals. So those that were charged with felonies and misdemeanors and things that are not exactly in accordance with U.S. law. I'm sorry, I can't take any more of his nonsensical puttering and sputtering out. Now, Cory Booker of New Jersey, he's also trying this particular thing where it's shifting everything to focusing on illegal immigration and really doing so in a way, I cannot believe that this actually went out. Just going all in on the we need illegal immigrants because slave labor is good. And so Cory Booker posted on his X a little montage of what are apparently illegal immigrants, I'm not sure, I don't think he knows, lifting their hands to the sky, picking asparagus. I'm not quite sure what on earth. Juan, Armando, Alonso, Librio, Oscar, Roman, Reis, Abraham. They're picking asparagus. Now, are you like inspired? So this is what he put with us. The hands that feed us. We see you. We will fight to protect you. Wow. I'm really impressed. I'm impressed because right now when the Democrats should be out there saying the things that might actually do a little bit of damage to the Trump administration, that, to be fair, there are very few targets left because they have fumbled every single ball so far. They're now going to fumble the rest of them because, of course, they are. We're going to let the radio crew head over to the commercial. We're going to continue on live stream. The influencers are not doing any better. And there are some consequences to all of this already. This is the Tony Kinnett cast here on The Daily Signal. Harry Sisson is many things. He's an influencer who, I guess, solicits a bunch of young ladies for nudes because he campaigned for Joe Biden. Not joking. He also apparently is only working out one arm in the gym. I don't know what the recent state of like gym pictures is for political influencers, but stop it. Anywho, Harry Sisson went on a podcast and tried to articulate why the illegal immigration slave labor issue is so deeply important to the Democrats. And it just goes sideways right off the bat.
I think we're already finding it out a little bit. Like
Trump, you mean?
Yeah,
Trump
yeah.
is, you think Trump?
I mean, I think there's definitely some connections here. Between like the rise in online culture and, you know, the rise in insecurity in young men, and then like being like, oh, well, Trump speaks to my insecurities. He says it's this person's fault, so it must be their fault, and I'm not the problem.
Whose fault?
I mean? Well, Trump picks on like a variety of people. He picks on immigrants. He picks on women. I mean, he blames a lot of these things on all these groups. And And you know, a lot of these young men will feel like it's not me, I'm not the problem. It's not my fault that I don't go out to parties and get girls. It's the immigrants who are taking my job. Some dumb shit like that.
The immigrants are going to the parties?
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Is
that what's going on over there?
That's what Trump is.
He's trying to play that off like smoothly, that he just said perhaps one of the dumbest things on air. And by the way, again, Jasmine Crockett talks regularly. So to say one of the dumbest things, that's an achievement in this day and age. Impressive. To suggest that, well, the reason Trump is popular is because there's all of these dudes who can't get girls. Very weird projection here, given what we know about Harry Sisson's messages that have been leaked to the public. But, you know, aside from that, to suggest that the reason that people don't like illegal immigration is not, you know, the violent crimes, the situations like Laken Riley, the massive human abuse, but, you know, it's that they're not getting invited to parties and illegal immigrants are apparently taking their girlfriends or whatever. Good luck with this. Good luck with this. If this is what you're going to run into the 2026 midterms with. Another one. This is from Tim Miller over at The Guardian. Quote, migrants at a Miami immigration jail were shackled with their hands tied behind their backs and made to kneel and eat food from styrofoam plates, quote, like dogs, according to a Human Rights Watch report. There's only one problem with stories like this. They're just not true. There's no photos for this. There's no evidences for this. There are no concentration camp. Oh, they're keeping people here forever. Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, tried to come out in front of the country and suggest that there's this mother from Los Angeles in Angelino taken out of her car on the way to work, because that's always, they're just trying to go to work and support our economy on wages that are not taxed properly so that slave labor can persist in the United States. But, you know, she was held in a warehouse as officers hoped that she would self-deport. No hearing, just fear. Now it turns out Karen Bass was lying about all of that. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, the entire story was fabricated. Video footage shows the mother calmly leaving the Jack in the Box parking lot in a sedan, not in a vehicle with heavily armed federal agents. And again, telephone records demonstrate that Bass and this Calderon individual fabricated the entire story. Now, why does all of this matter? What are Democrats trying to accomplish here with all of this? It should be really obvious. They are trying to whip people up into some kind of a frenzy so that the violence against federal officers will continue. They have to try so desperately to stoke people into this idea that fascism is here and it's coming for you so that you can get goofballs like this.
Want the f***ing bootlickers, huh? You sucking some fascist piece of You too.
So he's standing outside Nice facility. He's got his phone out. He's just screaming a lot of slurs and insults and other things. Now, who was he upset at ICE for arresting? ICE in Baltimore arrested Ethiopian criminal Abraham Berhanu Tadasi, who was sentenced to 20 years for rape in the state of Maryland. Ah, yes. Standard Maryland father behavior, eh, Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Goodness gracious. And they don't understand why this looks so awful to the rest of the American people. And there are stories to beat the band. We have fake kidnapping stories.
Breaking news at this hour, the Department of Justice has filed criminal charges against a South LA woman saying she staged a fake immigration kidnapping.
You have individuals who are consistently slashing tires.
This video, this was a guy who said he was a U.S. citizen fleeing from federal agents after they say he slashed the tires.
Man, I just can't understand why they're going around and arresting just nice moms and dads. And oh, wait, that's not the case. Consistently, the narrative is shredded. There are other things for the left to talk about. And by the way, I am out of time, at least at the moment. But there are a lot of other lawsuits that are coming down. Homeland Security. There's, of course, the Mahmoud Khalil situation. We're going to be back in just a second. Heading over to the commercial break. We're going to talk with a Pennsylvania state representative because the real question is, what does all of this matter? Where are we all heading? And every single question in the political side will be answered one way or another for both the future of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in the next election. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Don't go anywhere.
This This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
I don't really entertain a lot of state representatives on the show unless they are just a cut above the rest. And I mean that. When you hear State Rep David Rowe over from Pennsylvania, you're going to get it. Sir, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thank you so much for having me.
You have the honor of being in the trenches right now in the American political system. And I want to frame this up right. The entire country is currently in a battle for the soul of both political parties. The right is deciding where between the kind of hyper populism and isolationism and the kind of old maximize the profits kind of corporate establishment Republican Party, where that's going to land, throwing traditional conservatives and libertarians in. Those are all kind of duking it out right now, probably more openly in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania than anywhere else. I mean, your Senator Dave McCormick, that man is constantly on the move. And then there's the Democratic Party. I'm sure you saw Hunter Biden's totally not crack-laced, profanity-laden rants. Did you see those things?
Crack cocaine, crack cocaine, crack cocaine, crack cocaine, crack, crack, crack. But anyway.
I did, absolutely. I hope everybody saw those things.
We tried to air as much of them as we could on the show. How much did you get into that before you realized you needed some kettle corn to finish that thing?
Oh, I didn't need any kettle corn because it was entertaining enough as it was. I mean, I was riveted by that. I only grabbed the popcorn when I needed a snack, but that was entertaining enough on its own.
So right now you have the kind of old establishment, bleep you wing of the Democrat Party and the youths that are currently wrestling for control of the party. And again, that's also out in the open in Pennsylvania. And it's a really crazy thing to see because that's the cultural touchstone. You guys are advancing AI, you're advancing in industry, you're advancing in manufacturing, you're advancing in transportation infrastructure, you're modernizing some parts of the western side of the state while trying to do some regulatory reform on the eastern side of the Commonwealth. Sorry, didn't mean to say state there. So throughout all of this, where do you think we're going to go with both of these parties in the next couple of years? Because this is the question and too few are asking it.
Well, I think the reason that Pennsylvania has kind of become the sort of like the battleground of the country is because it really is kind of a microcosm of the nation as a whole, right? We've got big eds and meds with University of Pennsylvania, Penn State, you've got legacy universities, but then you've also got heavy manufacturing, heavy industry, you've got the steel city, you've got heavy ag, a huge farming sector. So Pennsylvania kind of is a microcosm of the whole country, but you're seeing the shift of what used to be the Democratic Party's coalition, whether
the 90s labor Bill Clinton union base.
Correct. Yep, exactly. You're seeing that coalition rapidly collapse. You looked at Pennsylvania. When I've lived in Pennsylvania almost my whole life. Growing up here, I remember Democrats had over 1 million voter registrations, over 1 million advantage in their voter registration numbers. That number now, when you cut it to just active voters, is less than 70,000. So we've seen 1 million people shift their voting records just over the last couple of decades. And it's because those labor unions, those traditional blue collar industries, those areas that were traditionally part of that Democrat stronghold, they are just bleeding into the Republican Party because the Republican Party is the party of common sense policies and regulatory reform and permitting reform and tax cuts and smaller government and government that works better, not government that's just bigger. So I'm hopeful that the trend we're seeing in Pennsylvania is something that becomes a national trend.
So a couple of these national trends that we're seeing also are reacted to by people on the ground. And again, people in Pennsylvania aren't particularly quiet, nor should they be, right? Because this is ground zero for how the Rust Belt is reviving, whether it goes into the medical and the service sectors, the tech sector, or whether it starts doing heavy manufacturing and steel again. So when you look at the revivification of American industry and you see what the average American can afford, what the average American is willing to do in economic experimentation, starting a small business, buying another home in the real estate market, investing in the stock market, these kinds of things are, again, at ground zero in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I want to ask, do you see so far a good reception to the Trump administration's policies on regulatory reform, cutting the fat in federal agencies, practicing new policies, not just the big deals that he's signing for, again, regarding U.S. Steel, regarding AI development? We can talk about those things too. What's the general reaction so far in PA?
Oh, it's overwhelmingly positive. I mean, every small business owner that I talk to says, hey, I have to live within my own means, right? If I can't live within my means, I have to make tough decisions. I got to make cuts here and there. But meanwhile, the government, if they don't live within their means, they can either tax me more or print more money, devaluing the money that I have. So seeing the government have to suddenly live within its means, seeing what President Trump has done, rolling back the size and scope of the bureaucracy, is overwhelmingly positive news for most of the small business owners and even the large corporate entities that we meet with. They're very excited about what the president has done because he's allowing Pennsylvania, which again, being a microcosm of the nation as a whole, to become competitive again. When I talk to small business owners who have been challenged with permitting processes, I've got a constituent that we've been working with for 3 years here, and they're trying to replace a broken drain pipe with a fixed drain pipe. That's it. We're not talking about a multi-billion-dollar power plant, right? We're talking about a drain pipe the length of less than my driveway, and it's taken them 3 years and almost $30,000, and they still don't have the drain pipe. We always often point to the headline where Arkansas builds a steel mill faster than Pennsylvania would permit one because the bureaucratic labyrinth makes it just impossible to do business. So I think that obviously we've got issues to handle on the state level, but nationally seeing the trend towards a more business-friendly environment is really just exciting news for these small business owners who have struggled over the last couple of years.
And that's where I want to tie in kind of the final part here, because state level policy is, again, a very weird microcosm in Pennsylvania. Governor Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, he's popular. There are some weird little asterisks to how he doesn't exactly toe the line with the rest of the Democratic Party. You can say really the same about Fetterman, at least from a communications level, not necessarily on a voting record. But state level decisions are going to be what carries the water ultimately. And I don't just mean that as a criticism of state run Democrat states, but also here in Indiana, where I am, which is a Republican state with heavy corporate interests. You've got I-70, you've got I-80, you have I-76, running up on the, northbound through the center part of Pennsylvania, huge industrial and transportation hubs that are by and large managed by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, that determine how industry flows. No one ever talks about semi-drivers in this country unless they're complaining about AI. And the Trump shift towards illegal immigration crackdowns on, for example, requiring semi-drivers to speak English, the proper treatment and care of those who keep our logistics system humming. Yet again, as a Hoosier, I have to concede, Pennsylvania is the leader in how our country navigates logistics and transportation. That is the bedrock of every industry in this country, and it's not even close. That's one of the reasons why fracking is such a huge thing in Pennsylvania. You got to ship it out of there. You can't just hold it in barrels in the Alleghenies.
Yeah, I think you compare the states and how they're managed. I think that is why we have these 50 laboratories of democracy, as the saying goes, even though we're actually a Republican form of government. But you look at the comparison of states like Pennsylvania, and like you pointed out, we have a geographical and topographical advantage over almost any other state in the union. We're the Keystone State for a reason. And
do you know how much that hurts me as a Hoosier to say? Do you know how much that it kills me to give you that on a platform? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please continue of the Keystone State and the great Commonwealth.
Well, no, but to your point, despite the fact that we have enough natural gas under our feet to power the country, despite all of that, we are getting our lunch eaten by states that are just run better. We are projected to lose yet another congressional seat in the 2030 redistricting, when we have lost at least one congressional seat every census cycle for the last 100 years. We're losing those seats to states like Florida or to states like North Carolina or Texas or even Indiana. I forget when you gained your last seat. But I met with some folks from the North American Blockchain Association who said, you guys have the geographical advantage, the infrastructure advantage, and the energy advantage. But despite that, Ohio has more than double your data center development because the permitting process, the regulatory process, the red tape is just too cumbersome for most investors to want to deal with.
Well, and on that, hold on a second here. I have to send the radio crew over to commercial. We'll catch you guys in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to keep talking with State Rep David Rowe because this is some cool stuff. So don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, so over on the live stream here, just to continue, there is a little bit of an asterisk regarding kind of the data center development, and I'm glad that you pivoted into this because Ohio, you have a lot of data centers being built. In Indiana, you have a lot of data centers that are trying to be built. Those things deplete the local water table if they're not done correctly, because you got to cool all of these vast data centers, the server rooms, all the supporting equipment that goes into these massive server farms, and the GPUs running overclocked all the time to run these big AI-driven centers. One of the questions that I have does, in fact, come down to how it's developed. Sure, Ohio is multiplying this by 50s and hundreds. Good for them. But if they're not doing it right, they're not doing it in a way that's worth doing. I was excited to see Trump announce that there was going to be expansion of the hydroelectric power systems. Pennsylvania's water table is like 3/2 that of Ohio in like a per square mile. You guys just have access to more groundwater. So the question that I have, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, is there any hope for nuclear power development? I know that you guys have a huge fracking industry, and I would never in a million years dream of undercutting that. But the development of nuclear energy in Pennsylvania is not a new concept. And to be a net exporter of energy on the Eastern power grid for the nuclear system, I mean, you could stack as many AI centers as you want. You hook that up to Lake Erie, it's permanently cooled. Presto, we all go home happy.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple of exciting things happening in Pennsylvania. First of all, regarding nuclear, 3 Mile Island, which is just outside of the capital city of Harrisburg, that's supposed to be coming back online, which is really exciting. It's going to take a couple of years to actually make that vision a reality. If you look at
all God's people said, amen.
Exactly right. Over in Homer City, though, for example, which was the largest coal plant in the Commonwealth that shut down several years ago, they're looking at retrofitting it to be a natural gas plant for the purpose of building out a data center. Now, all this stuff is exciting. You know, obviously, these data centers represent significant investments, lots of job opportunities.
Sure, the abundance crew on the left has reason to be excited about it. Almost all of those on the right, save a few populists, have reason to be excited about it. We all agree those things are good, except for the people whining in European accents.
Right. Sure. And the talk on the energy side of things, right, we're part of the PJM grid here in Pennsylvania, which unfortunately has been sounding alarm for the last couple of years about impending blackouts, because Pennsylvania, part of the PJM grid, we're one of the only net exporters of in the entire grid. We're like the only member state that actually creates more energy than we consume. So we're exporting our energy down to Maryland and over to New Jersey, because while they're shutting down their plants, we're struggling to meet up their needs. So
New Jersey specifically on that case.
Yeah.
Sorry, the science teacher in me is getting excited, and I'm sorry. I just, every time you say something, it's like, oh, I've got 3 more questions about this. So I'm sorry. We're going to be running up on the commercial here in a couple of minutes. So if you can make up for my errors, can you kind of close up the idea on where Pennsylvania is heading along that line? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, the biggest thing that we have to make sure is, as we're seeing these data center build outs happen, all of these new plants, whether it's 3 Mile Island, Homer City, up in Berwick, all of these new data centers being built next to power plants are being built there because they're next to power plants. These plants coming online are fueling these data centers. They're not actually contributing any net gain of energy back into the grid. So if we want to see this industry continue to thrive, if we want to see investment and opportunities and growth and jobs, we need to make sure that our energy industry is there to be able to meet the demands of those new data centers, but at the same time, making sure that we're not careening towards a path of blackouts and brownouts because we've neglected to make up the shortfalls that the grid is going to be facing in the next year or two here.
Absolutely. Again, incredibly important. Also, one of the reasons these are built next to so many power centers is because all human ingenuity regarding power generation is simply boiling water. What do you need to boil water? You need water. So, well, of course, a lot of really cool things going on in Pennsylvania. And although I often forget it, most of our radio syndication partners, all the way from Colorado, all the way to the East Coast in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, they're on the I-70 corridor. At least a lot of them are. And so to our partner over there, the Keystone State, Great Commonwealth, Pennsylvania State Rep David Rowe, can't thank you enough for what it is you're doing, man. Thanks for taking a minute with us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
We got to swing back and catch the radio crew up from commercial, so don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Again, You would think the media is going all in on the Obama stuff right now. They have to be, right? I mean, come on. It's an opportunity to say that Pam Bondi is big bad and Tulsi is big bad and a Russian asset lady and that Marco Rubio is big bad. You think they'd be pairing Marco Rubio against the rest of them due to the Senate investigation that was, again, completely thrown out by the false intelligence report. They're not giving any oxygen to this at all. Not even Republicans pounce. So what is the media spending all of their time on? And I do mean all of their time. Well, they're freaking out still that Stephen Colbert and The Late Show have been canceled 10 months from now. And they're trying to make it a case of the journalists are finally under the jackboot. The comedians are under the jackboot of fascismic aggression. Here's Sonny Hostin on The View, giving a dire warning.
But my concern is if it is political, then everyone should be concerned. People on the right should be concerned. People on the left should be concerned. Because it's very clear that if it is political, this is the dismantling of our democracy. This is the dismantling of our Constitution, right?
Yes, Queen.
And so the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason, and that is freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom to speak truth to power.
She has no idea what the other freedoms are in the First Amendment. She has no clue whatsoever.
If that is taken away, if the comedians are being attacked, then that means our Constitution is being dismantled.
That's right. I will remind you that right before the 2024 election, the left tried to have the slam joke comedian that performed at Madison Square Garden. They tried to make sure he was arrested. Many on the media tried to have the guy brought up on charges because he told a joke about Puerto Rico. And now here we go. Trump, again, nothing at all to do with Stephen Colbert, who is not canceled today, has not been shut off tomorrow. He's on the air for another 10 months. Guys, if Kathy Griffin can hold up the severed head of the president caked in blood, and nothing happens to her except a couple of mean tweets, they ain't targeting the comedians.
That means the very rubric of our democracy is being dismantled.
The very rubric of our democracy is being graded. It's a constitutional republic, first of all. The rubric, as a former teacher, producer Nick, I'm a little confused at that one. The rubric of our democracy, as in like, you get 3 points in freedom and 7 points in bald eagles. I don't know what that also.
Got rid of one more comedian show, so that's half a point off.
Yeah, I do question though. She was like trying to mimic the Tesseract, or did she mean the Rubik's Cube?
She was fiddling with it.
The
in her
Rubik's
mind,
Cube of
democracy she can't solve a real one.
Is no longer red, white, and blue. Oh my goodness, fantastic! Other late night hosts have pitched in, all again clamoring in support in favor of Stephen Colbert. I'm not sure that we can play some of these on the air. I know we can't play the awkward, fake black Southern gospel choir that they dressed a bunch of people up in red, like church robes from the South, like Southern Baptist style church robes, and then just sang F Trump on the air, loud and proud. By the way, very, very insulting to Christians. You know how anytime there's something that mocks something on the left, that we all have to stop and pretend how awful and terrible this is. The left can throw on church robes and scream a bunch of obscenities, and then that's like totally it's like speaking truth to power, man.
That's art.
Yeah, art indeed. Very, very muchly so here. I don't think this is the choir clip. I sure hope it isn't. Wow. Yes. So John Oliver and Jon Stewart, they're gonna recreate I knew this was coming. The Coldplay cheating cam, again, all to flip off Donald Trump. This is their best goal here. They think they've really got him.
Those guys seem to love being on camera.
There's the Coldplay music, Viva La Vida, and then an animated Trump, and then the Paramount logo. Then they recreate it with an animation. If you can't even find an actor to play it, you've got to like do some cheap, awkward, big mouth animation thing. How down bad are you? What's up?
It's funny, the boos that these crowds produce on these late night shows all sound the same, almost as if they're canned.
Or that there's just nothing behind them. They see Trump and they realize they have to stop cheering and go, boo, boo. Like they're virtue signaling to each and everyone around them. I do love it. Again, all of the bleep Trump this, whatever, you're not going to get them. I hate to tell you. And this is something else that I will say that really should be pointed out. I haven't seen a ton of people bringing attention to this because there's this idea of solidarity. Oh, all the late night hosts, they're sticking together. Oh, it's wonderful. Isn't this so amazing, incredible? I'm going to tell you a secret. The late night hosts, the other late night show hosts, the Jimmy Kimmels, the Jimmy Fallons, Jon Stewart, that Oliver guy, whatever, they don't actually care about Stephen Colbert at all. They don't. They do not care. They don't feel bad for him. They all hate each other. They all hate each other. They are upset, they are mad, and they are scared because their own shows lose $40 million a year at least out of a total budget of $100 million. To be 140 in the hole is just insane. 140 million in the hole. All of their shows lose that kind of money for their networks every year. And if CBS can get rid of its late show, well, so to Jimmy Kimmel and Fallon and Jon Stewart and John Oliver and essentially everyone pulling negative ratings except, well, Greg Gutfeld, learn to code. Or actually, get people to watch your show, just kind of a hot tip there. So, radio crew, we do have to let you guys go for the evening. It's been a joy, a genuine pleasure to be on this evening to talk about some of the Obama-style news. So we will be in touch with y'all tomorrow on that. So to the radio crew side, this is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right. I have to run off in just a second to hop on a network TV hit. But for y'all, just a smidgen of bonus tonus because The View has not stopped. They don't. And unfortunately, the Coldplay cheating thing was a hot subject of discussion that I've been trying to get to for a couple days because you would expect that, like the rest of the country, don't cheat on your spouse. Hot take. And number two, if you get caught cheating in public, you're the bad guy. A lot of people agree with this, but of course, the ladies on The View have to step in and go, well, I mean,
A CEO of a company should never be dating the head of HR. They are literally there to,
I love how that's what's getting clapping. You know what? A married man should not be dating other women.
Beyond the affair, these are...
Oh, beyond the affair. Oh, HR is very holy and sanctimonious. Again, for the 800th time, human resources has been and will be a sham. Nothing keeps human resources accountable. Human resources, in the current corporate interests here in the United States, in the current climate, are filled with a bunch of childless Karens who make nothing more in their lives more meaningful than rejecting constant applications and causing people grief inside of companies to sound and seem virtuous. That is all human resources serve. And I say that as a guy who has not had a bunch of his applications thrown away by HR, but have seen a huge number of colleagues and friends of mine in both the trades and in the kind of white collar sector tossed aside by HR. So screw HR. Not if you're a married man, though.
The people that's supposed to implement company policy. There's a power dynamic. There's a question of
sometimes you can't help who you want to get on. Oh no.
And here comes Whoopi. So the real issue, sometimes you can't help it, sometimes you got to get out there and get it on,
Sometimes you just can't. The head of HR,
it's also,
because she's not the head of HR in the bed.
But you are married. Whoopi Goldberg, yes, paragon of moral virtue. Well, sometimes you just can't help it. Yes, excellent. Please share more with us, Whoopi of the Wisdom Goldberg.
But you know what? I'm sorry. If you take your person to a concert,
mistress, that's the word you're looking for.
Side piece.
I don't know if she's. You know what? There's so much that I'm interested in, but I don't know what this is. I don't know if he was happily married, she was happily.
I'm going to tell you guys a secret. It is your baseline, simplest responsibility as a broadcaster. If you are an entertainer, if you're in media, the very basic research of the topic you are talking about is expected of you. That is all that's expected of you. Know what you're talking about. And on The View, they're not reporting the news. They are simply given a packet of stuff and they're expected to read it. If you're going to do a whole segment on the Coldplay concert and the big scandal regarding the astronomy CEO and the head of HR and the head from HR and all this other stuff, just saying, maybe read before you get on air and talk about it and then say, well, we don't know what the marriage situation was. Again, it does not matter. As long as you are married, don't commit adultery. Hot, amazing take. I know, crazy. The Mike Pence, Billy Graham rule strikes again. I too am astounded.
I don't know any of that. Yeah. But I do know that if you don't want people to know what you're doing, don't take them to concerts. Yeah.
Now, that is true. But again, one of the reasons that people who violate certain natural precepts get caught so frequently is because most often people that, in the Christian language, we would say people who sin, do so stupidly. In fact, because wisdom does not come from, committing really stupid, embarrassing sins in front of the country. Now, this whole thing's really funny because Joy Behar, just like a year ago, was telling the rest of the View that, any of them could just have affairs whenever they wanted. Having affairs is fun. They could just, go out and, yes, the vibrant beauties of the somehow worse than the Golden Girls are here to tell us all about their affair skills.
I say she got away with it because men are so clueless and egotistical. They think no one would ever cheat on them.
That's true. I don't think my wife would cheat on me. That would be because we're in a loving marriage that is based on biblical values and a commitment.
A woman can keep it a secret better than a man. That's my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
Because the guys, they're like...
All right, we got to go. We got to do the bragging about how adulterous you can be. I can lie better than my husband can. You're bragging about this?
No, she's not going to do that. Is it your opinion or your experience?
Oh, salacious. She just asked you if you have experience committing an affair on your husband. I'm sorry. Am I supposed to like, oh, that's funny, get it? Because like when women cheat, it's like, haha, like, I hate to be the millennial who says like a lot, but it pops up quite frequently when we are dumbfounded and at a loss for words by the sheer stupidity that is in front of us.
Do I have to go into Spanish again?
No, I would preface this to say my husband's love of my life. I would never cheat on him, but I could absolutely.
But, of course, my husband's the love of my life. I would never cheat on him, but tries to slip that in there real smoothly.
Absolutely get away with it. The number of purchases I've made, he'll never.
Tell us how. I'm trying to take notes. I'm leaving my husband tonight because I hate him. The left is just in the worst place in human history.
No, but I could get a new piece of furniture and it'd take him weeks to notice in our house. I've been in different states and called him and he'd be like, are you at home? Like completely forgets where I am. Yet I
my husband's so stupid.
Always know where he is. Clueless. He ate that.
Yeah, I get a haircut and my husband doesn't know.
Is it any wonder why the majority of articles about marriage from the Atlantic and the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post, etc., are about being unhappy in their marriage? When you think of your spouse as just some dumb idiot you can screw over or screw around on whenever you want? Man, I wonder why Americans aren't taking relationship advice from you. That said, I've got to scoot away for a bit the other side of my job this evening. Take care. There will not be Top News in 10 for the YouTube side tomorrow. That will be on the podcast side. So you have to head over there. We'll include a link in the description. Great to see you guys this evening. There's a link in the channel description as well for the Discord. You're welcome to stop by and join what is always a very lively conversation. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Take care.